tell me a little bit about the flag you've chosen to wave here today?
So basically I chose to come with the Kyrgyzstani flag, which you can see right here, because of the principle it represents, and that is complete unmoderated freedom of speech. And freedom of speech does not mean violence. Speech is just speech. Speech doesn't march in the streets and break bones. Speech doesn't set fire to establishments and trash cars like rioters do. Speech is just the idea that whatever is on your mind, you should be able to say it without being faced with legal repercussion for what you are saying.
What do you say to people who might see your flag and accuse you of supporting the alt-right or white nationalism?
Well, I'd say that I've been at a Jewish high school for 12 years. My best friends are Jewish, and I don't support alt-right. If anything, I support the idea that they should be allowed to speak, even if we don't agree with what they say. And likewise, we should be allowed to rebut their points based on factual argumentation and not on the esoteric idea that feelings are getting hurt, for which reason we must not talk about certain issues. Because let's face it, if you run away from your problems, they're only gonna get worse. But if you face your problems and you discuss them and try to formulate reasonable responses as to how you can diminish the impact of those problems, you're going to achieve solutions.
And it's very easy. This is for you guys. If I do that, I just don't care about you.
Thank you very much for speaking to me. As I've just been saying before we started recording, a lot of people are going to look at the pictures from this event, see the Kyrgyzstan flags, write the whole thing off as sort of alt-right, white nationalist thing. Would you say any of those labels apply to your political beliefs, Tom? No?
I'm more of a central leftist, actually.
So,
don't even get me started. I will take everything I have and shitpost you into the ground.
Yeah,
you know what's coming.
Us centre lefties are a rare breed now, I think. So what would you say are the main reasons that bring you out to a protest like this for freedom of expression?
The main reason to bring me out here, I actually flew all the way over from Canada just for this.
Wow.
Freedom of speech, freedom of thought, these things are the most important things you could possibly have in a free, liberal society. So,
when you compare the sort of laws and attitudes towards freedom of expression in Canada versus the UK, which concerns you more, would you say?
It's kind of on a similar table right now. We don't get arrested in Canada, but it's still not pretty. So it's definitely more important here right now. And hopefully if we can stop it here, it doesn't make its way over to my country.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for speaking to me.
All right,
Cheers.
no problem.
The Metropolitan Police define hate crime as any criminal offence perceived by the victim or any other person to be motivated by hostility, prejudice and so forth. As perceived by the victim! This is a horrendous state of affairs, one that gives more power to alleged victims and ensures that, providing the victim can point out a protected characteristic pertaining to them as an individual, the hand of justice will come down on the accused in a far firmer fashion, because they need only to make the allegation of a hate crime for the Met to be satisfied. They'll even sit by when a girl is convicted for posting song lyrics on Instagram in tribute to a young dead man. We need to make it clear to those members of Parliament who do not understand meme culture, the internet, offensive humour and the true definition of free speech. We need to tell them, you do not represent us! You are obsolete! And you will face further pressure from those who want their liberty back! So there is a question on everyone's lips. This question is so controversial that just asking it is to brand yourself an outsider, a dissident, and a rogue. The question is about one of the most controversial speeches ever given in this country. It's a question with implications so grave that some consider it a monstrous thing even to think about. The question is, was Enoch Powell right?
Yes!
The short answer is, how many stabbings make a river? Yeah. Well, you've got to answer it. In this country, in 15 or 20 years' time, the black man will have the whip hand over the white man. I notice you've all gone fucking silent after I said that. Fucking told you. As we have seen, to the eternal disgrace of the government's handling of the Windrush scandal, this has not happened. But something similar has. Our black Commonwealth cousins who came here 50 years previously have integrated very well, because they have come here to be British. Powell's constituent was right to worry, but as the events have shown in the recent furor of police indifference to a British lady called Janaya English, even being black is no defence. The British government did not place the whip into the hand of the black man. It placed it into the hand of anyone who proudly declared themselves to be anything but British. Our institutions are obsequious to any identity that stands apart from our own, so that when Janaya received death threats for criticizing Islam, the police told her this could be avoided by keeping her mouth shut. Hooray! And like any British person should, instead of being cowed in the face of tyranny, Janaya stood up to be counted among the ranks of those of us who could endure this no more. All of this is a question of identity and values, because the former is defined by the latter. The British identity is grounded in our ancient traditions of liberty and tolerance, and all other identities that we exist in this country must also be so. We did not need black people or Muslims to have ethnic tensions in this country. This country is built on ethnic tensions 1,000 years old between the English, the Irish, the Scots and the Welsh and all the subdivisions thereof. These tensions synthesized themselves and that harm can only be done by action and not by words. These identities and values matter. It was the identity of Muslim that allowed the men who formed grooming gangs to enact religiously sanctioned campaign of assaults against children, targeted for their ethnic characteristics. White and Sikh girls were targeted because they fell outside of the Muslim identity and therefore warranted no moral consideration. What the men convicted of these crimes did falls directly in line with our definition of a hate crime, and yet they were not charged as such. It is one rule for one and another rule for another.
No rules for some.
This is not an acceptable state of affairs in a liberal democracy. All citizens should be treated without distinction by the state. In order to fulfill Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of a world where people are judged by the content of their character. To do anything else is to encourage the proliferation of nefarious elements in society. People who earn their stations in life through means other than hard work and decency. It confers on a certain group a set of privileges not enjoyed by the rest. This will breed resentment of the kind that eventually brings out guillotines. Hate speech laws are incubating something very dark and very angry in this country. Tommy Robinson is not a racist, he is a warning. Every time I meet Tommy Robinson and we walk around the streets, you see the same thing. Rough, working class men spy him, they look around, and when they think they're in the clear, they go up to him and shake his hand and say thank you for everything you are doing, and then walk away like nothing happened. This happens multiple times when I see him. This is a problem. This is what happens when people are treated like second-class citizens. These people are not racists, but they are reacting to the perceived source of their oppression. They have criminalized legitimate criticism of an ideology that is not liberal, not tolerant, and places itself in direct opposition to the identity of the British. But they have gone even further than this, and they have now criminalized humor. Ron Liddell made a joke about the Welsh in the Sunday Times, about how a bridge across the Severn connects Wales to the First World. A very good joke. This aroused the ire of the North Wales Crime Commissioner and numerous other Plaid Cymru idiots with cries of hate speech. The politically correct inquisition against Ron Liddell shows us that we can no longer even have banter between the constituent ethnicities of the British Isles. And if we let this continue, the United Kingdom is lost. Ethnic jokes serve one purpose: to diffuse ethnic tensions by normalizing the differences between ethnicities. If we are not free to offend one another, we are not free to make the kind of ethnic jokes that strengthen the social fabric of this country. country. Without the freedom to offend, we create a series of armed camps, each watching the others for any signs of transgression, both obsessed with defending the honor of their respective tribe. This can only divide a country by setting us apart from one another and making us strangers to our neighbors. We need the banter to keep ourselves grounded and maintain this United Kingdom. And unless we scrap all laws prohibiting insult and giving of offence, the problems we are facing will only get worse. Free Count Dankula, thank you.
We may well have come from different backgrounds and contrasting belief systems, but our message here today is the same. There endures among us a shared confidence and esteem in free expression as the value essential to a free and flourishing society. There may be some who feel today that the sentencing of Count Dankula is trivial and incidental. I invite such individuals to recall how minor and innocuous was the cartoon of Muhammad that left 12 alleged blasphemers murdered at their own desks. Comedy is an artistic medium, and like all artistic expression, it lives on the periphery of the tasteful and the sanitized. It is true that some people speak coarsely, and that is because people who are not sheltered children know that it is not words but evil deeds that harm us. To borrow a line from Professor Jordan Peterson, to think is to risk being offensive. There cannot be a double standard, or despots will flourish and resentment will breed. If to think is to risk being offensive, then I urge you, ladies and gentlemen, speak out!
I wish to make 3 brief points. The first will concern guilt by association. The second will concern saving Scottish banter. And the third will concern changing the law, by which I mean Section 1, subsection A of the Communications Act 2003. Let me return to the first point, guilt by association. This morning I got a disturbed message from a friend of mine in my constituency association saying, "You're going to be sharing a stage with Tommy Robinson. You can't do that, it looks bad." To which my response was, "I'm sorry, ideas don't become wrong because of who believes in them." Just because some of the people who believe in a thing that you believe in, and also believe in a thing that happens to be true, as Sargon has already pointed out, Sargon, Carl, I'm not sure which he prefers, has already pointed out, it happens to be true. It doesn't become untrue because somebody strange starts to believe in it. That's the first point. The second point Scottish banter. I used to be a solicitor up in Scotland, and I became very familiar with Scottish banter. It is very funny. Scottish people are very funny. Their humour is one of the great gifts that Scotland has given the United Kingdom and the world. It is the reason that Scotland has produced people like Billy Connolly and Frankie Boyle. Even in the Scots law of defamation, there is a specific carve-out for the Scottish tendency to take the piss. Say Scottish banter, it's worth it. It's probably as valuable as the Scottish Enlightenment in the long run.
Minor details.
Finally, changing the law. Section 127 of the Communications Act 2003 was a reenactment by the Blair government as part of their many laws. More laws were enacted in 13 years of Labour government than had been enacted in these islands from 1066 to 1997. However, when they enacted that law, it was a reenactment of an earlier 1935 law that was meant to criminalise people who made telephone calls in the middle of the night and did heavy breathing down the phone. Hence the public communication device, telephone call. It was also meant to stop people calling the emergency services, ringing 999 and saying that Granny was having a watusi on the living room carpet when she wasn't. So you didn't have the NHS sending all the ambulances out for nothing. That it is now the principal means by which the internet is regulated in this country is a much bigger joke than Count Dankula's silly little pug. There is another part to this that is also very disturbing for anyone who has practiced law in Scotland, and I will try to describe it briefly. In England and Wales, it is possible for the police to bring prosecutions. I was talking about this to some of the officers from the Met here earlier. In Scotland, it is not. In Scotland, prosecutions are brought by the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, because Scotland has got a Roman law criminal system. That's why the name is so strange. What was done here in Scotland involved Police Scotland trawling through the country's very small Jewish community to try to find a complainant, because they could not initiate action of their own motion. What it means is that more police time will be wasted, particularly in Scotland because of this procedural difference, but also in England and Wales, where police can bring these prosecutions of their own motion. It costs time, it costs money, it wastes resources. We know there have been funding cuts. We know that the Met boasts about its 900 hate crime officers and says that, oh, we're not going to worry terribly much if you get your bicycle nicked. As someone who has had her bicycle nicked, I can assure you it's considerably worse than being called a nasty name. In conclusion, guilt by association needs to get in the bin. It's nonsense. Scottish banter is worth saving. And section 127, subsection 1, section A needs to be repealed.
A plague on all your houses. For if you do not stand now against this tyranny, we will all be punished.
I am Elise. I'm a writer, a YouTuber, and a shitposter extraordinaire. Sadiq Khan has done such a terrible job of being Mayor of London. Such a terrible job that I, in 2020, will be running for Mayor of London. I will keep it short. I promise you 3 things. No more little people! No more will people have to pay over £4 for a pint. No more! No more little people! Hold on. No more will you have to have a license for a butter knife. And no more will the Met Police waste resources on looking for mean tweets online. Vote for me in 2020 as your Mayor of London, and I promise you these three things. Thank you very much. Follow me on Twitter, Elise Easy.
My name is Jack Deadman. I'm a politics student from Kent, and I stand here. I've worked with politics, and I counted votes for the last election. What party did I have to go to, aside from, Young Labour, where I fear that I'll be brainwashed with John McDonnell syndrome and told that communism never killed 100 million people? Or will I have to stand alongside Tories, the only party that can face them, where a woman just wants to rip apart foxes because it'll impress her friends in the party, and then tax people who just want to stay warm in the winter? What movement do I have to go to, aside from the one that begins here?
So as you can see by my guitar right here, I am of the Jewish variety.
Somebody's got to be.
I've come up here for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to show very simply that there is diversity in this crowd. Although there is quite a lot of white faces, there are Jews, there are Muslims, there are blacks, there are gays, there are people of all colours, all creeds. So I wanted to keep that in mind. Secondly, I wanted to actually talk about Count Dankula himself. Now, many of you haven't probably spoken to him, many of you haven't talked to him or met him, but I've spoken to him. I've spoken to him on his Discord channel. I've spoken to him on Twitter, and the man is one of the best human beings in the United Kingdom. The fact that a man like that, a man who accepts everybody, a man who brings everybody onto his Discord server to have a fun time, to shitpost, to meme, to have a bit of fun, can be reprimanded by the government for a joke is a disgrace. Now, many of you might not be aware, but yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, I can't really remember. Well, I can't even remember that I have feet right now, that's how scary this is. But yesterday, his Discord server was taken down with 8,000 people on it, with no explanation from the Discord server management. They've opened up a new server and it's growing very quickly, but you have to be invited privately because they're so afraid if they announce the server on Discord, they will delete the server instantaneously. So, what I'd like to say is that it's good to keep in mind the government, but we also have to keep in mind these corporations that continue to do the bidding of our government, continue to restrict freedom of speech, and continue to oppress a man who spent the last 2 years in limbo and has now been fined 800 quid for a joke. Thank you.
Free speech is under threat in this country. It's under threat from Antifa, from the far left, but perhaps more worryingly, it's under threat by the government, by the state, and our concerns, furthermore, not being listened to. We've seen within the last couple of months, again, journalists, for example, Lauren Southern, a journalist from the United States who's going to come here to interview Tommy Robinson, being barred from entering the UK using the Prevention from Terrorism Act 2000. So legislation that was designed to prevent terrorism has been used to prevent a journalist from entering this country. I cannot underscore how serious the situation is and the complete unprecedented nature of the threat to free speech that we currently have in this country. We must continue to protest and make our voices heard.
I know you all love being lectured by Americans. It tends to be a British pastime. Yes, I know. Anyways, I would like to say that over the past year living here at the glorious Kent University down in Canterbury, I have become inspired. Inspired by the British people, the British culture, and the British way of life. I love it here. It's like a second home to me. And I would like to say something. In the United States, we are all in agreement. All communists are bad people. And
hold on a minute, I'm a communist. You think I'm bad?
You are the very worst of them.
Am I the worst?
Yes.
Well, at least I'm the worst of them. If I was going to be a communist, I might as well be the worst of them. Thank you very much. Okay, carry on. You carry on. Communism.
But as I was walking down with you lovely...
Shut up! What has the communists ever done for you? Oh, sorry, it's freedom of speech up to a point, isn't it, everyone, isn't it? Oh, yes.
100 million more! Can somebody please get the KGB on this man? Yes. Anyways, what I would like to say, and what I would like to say proudly, is that as I was walking down here, I saw the statues of all these wonderful men that have stood and defended this great nation. Yes, Mike. Now I'd like to say down that way, there's a statue of a very great man by the name of Winston Churchill. You might have heard of him. And I would like to give a message to May and her communist ilk that have allowed this nonsense to happen. And I would like to give this message on behalf of all the liberals here. We will fight you in the chat rooms. We will fight you on social media. We shall defend our pugs. And we shall never surrender.
As an 8-year-old, I used to stand in line in school in Iran and shout, "Death to Israel! Death to America!" I used to mime those words because for me, America was where the only thing I knew was Marlon Brando came from there, and it was my favorite actor. As for Israel, I didn't even know what that was, so basically I was just miming nonsense. Then my family escaped Islamofascism. That's actual fascism. And we went to Sweden.
And then you escaped to Britain.
But then, to be honest, Sweden was a great country back then, but there was a huge element of Nazism. Actual neo-Nazism. As an 11-year-old, I had my face kicked into a pop by steel-toed boots of skinheads. As a 23-year-old, I came to this country. And I had always this question in my mind, what do people mean when they say, I'm proud to be British? What does that even mean? Because you didn't actually do anything to be British, you were born here. You know, if you say, well, that too. But then, it's like, well, I'm proud to be British because of all the green and the beauty of our country. Well, North Korea is beautiful. Iran is beautiful. What do people mean when they're proud to be British? But soon, as I left my socialist ways and became a libertarian, I realized what you meant. You meant the values. You meant the values of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, being able to joke. Those were the things you meant you were proud of.
And the crumpets. More ways than one.
Well, if you're Scottish, you'd be proud of haggis, and I can share that.
It's very tasty.
It's not. I lived in Scotland. It's very loud. But I just want to say here, as someone who came here as a guest of yours, I'm so grateful that I was allowed to share those values with you. And we should send a message to those who want to take away those values from us, that for every single Count Dankula that they put behind bars, there's going to be 10 more of us. And for every of those 10, there's going to be 100 more. And it's going to carry on and carry on until you either got the entire nation behind bars or you realize you're nothing but fucking fascists. Thank you.
To get to your house, but I've had 2 police prevent officers at my door claiming that I could be in the danger of having some very unwelcoming views. And I say to this, fuck these fucking officers. They do not have the right to say what I cannot say and what I can say. I want to say this to every victim of Prevent Programme. Do not bow down to these fascist policemen. Do not let them win. Come here and do not be afraid. You can, there's something I really want to, get off my chest here, but generally these people do think they have the authority, but generally they don't have the will to understand the human spirit of coming here today. I'll keep this brief, but I really want to applaud everyone coming here, because I know that general fact, unfortunately, like most protests are generally useless. The politicians in those houses of parliament have kept us at bay here, but even if we were down there, they would not give a shit. And of course, I know that the policemen who are recording us right now do not care about us. They don't care because they have to act neutral. It's part of their job. But I think that the real thing that we should be doing here is saying these same lines of freedom of speech to our politicians and the lobbyists, because those are the ones who need to hear these voices the most. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I was born in a country where you have to be very careful what you say and to whom you say, or you can face KGB agents coming to your door. Sounds familiar? So, as Sargon said, it could be end of Britain. No, it could be beginning of Soviet Socialist Republic of Great Britain. Thank you.
Freedom of speech, and this is the point I'm trying to make, is not a set of laws. A set of laws, or rather a lack thereof, is a necessary condition for freedom of speech. But freedom of speech is not a set of laws, it is a culture. It is a culture of reconsidering ideas. And for that reason it has obligations on people who speak and people who listen. The people who listen have to accept that just because they're pissed off about something and it doesn't fit with their worldview, that's not a good reason to limit it. And they have to realise that if they disagree with somebody, they need to start reconsidering it and asking where this person is coming from. But I also think that creates obligations on us. I don't think, unless you're being either funny or politically provocative, that offending people is going to be any good, especially where we are now, because the more we just say, something, I don't like the colour of your skin, that's funny, haha, I should be able to say it, we're just going to piss off the really left-wing university students who will take any inch and turn it into a mile. So what we need to do is make sure that we are almost encouraging them to reconsider stuff. We have to foster this culture, and for as long as all people do is piss people off to make a point, and for as long as the other people think that that's all our side is, we're never going to get anywhere. So it's all very well and good having a big argument about the law, but we also need to make sure that we protect the culture of freedom of speech, otherwise it's entirely lost. That's all I wanted to say on this, apart from one quote from J.S. Mill, which I thought is pretty good. I'll paraphrase it. So he says, people often confuse when they're talking about liberty whether people ought to do something or not with the question of whether the law is the correct thing to do that. I do think it's quite an unsavory opinion, for example, to believe that Jews should be killed. I generally don't agree with that view, and I think most of you also disagree with that view too, right? Yeah, well, 3 cheers for the Jews, okay. So, but my point
is not only no use for convincing people they're wrong, but also opens the window for people to abuse those laws. You know, you can shut down someone from coming into the country if they say something you don't like. So you have to ask people, even if something is unsavory, do you think it's the law's job to limit it, or do you think it's the culture's job? That's all I have to say. I hope I dripped a little bit of interest into my just punching of Antifa people as a reputation. Thank you.
Thank you!
Hello, everyone. I want to make one thing clear. I am not Lauren Southern. My name is Ashton. I have a YouTube channel called Ashton Birdie, and I come from a very awful, dark place. It is called Berkeley, California. You may have known it as they almost burned down their own campus and Molly Yiannopoulos tried to speak.
I thought it was still on fire.
Yes, it is. What I wanted to say is, I don't have a speech prepared because I kind of just showed and filmed all you guys being idiots, but, you know, but whatever. This is why I love the British. Because despite the fact that... This is why I love the British. Your country is fucked.
Good luck coming in again.
But the thing is, it is so fucked. You actually see the problem and you do something about it. Yeah. You go past your different opinions. Chances are this guy over here hates this guy over here for saying something and whatever. But you guys come together because you understand what's happening in your country. It's fucking ridiculous. In America, we can't seem to do that. And the people in America need to freaking wake up, because whatever happens here happens over there. Whether it's immigration, whether it's education, whether it's freedom of speech, everything you do here begins to happen over there. So stop fucking up.
Thank you. Forgive my rugged appearance. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm here all day. Don't forget to leave a tip. I wish to make as quickly as possible what my case is, in hopefully about 10 sentences. For the benefit of anyone who's wondering why I'm here today, like my PhD supervisor. So, the reason I'm here today is for Section 127 of the Communications Act, which is badly written. It allows controversial speech to be branded hate speech and criminalised. For most people, like my PhD supervisor, who are not here today, are not here because they don't believe that anything they say will be controversial enough for them to be punished. Well, I have to say to that, and to them, that the walls between controversial and non-controversial speech are closing rapidly. And you may have already said the thing which will lead to your demise if this country carries on along its present trajectory. Thank you.
Right. Is to brand yourself. Is to brand it. It's this fucking megaphone, mate.
Hey!